Should be going out on YouTube now. Coming up, folks, in 4 or 5 minutes' time, Stephen Place talking about police state. What is going on in the UK with the dystopia? How necessary is it? Not just in the UK, but around the world. Where are we going, people? And also, candidate for the leadership of UKIP. So what's the deal with that? Coming up in 4 minutes' time. Oh dear, that was silly, wasn't it? Hold on a sec. See if I can pull up some music again. Do apologise, people. Copyright free music. Hold on a sec. Let's see if I can sort that out. If you're watching an archive version, you might want to fast forward about 3 minutes to the top of the show. Otherwise, just hang in there. Hang in there. Enjoy the copyright free music. Yeah. Something like that. Hey Tannis, Paul, I see you there, and everybody on YouTube, God bless you. Please do us a favour, share the show. Annoy Nick Clegg today. Hey folks, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good people. welcome to the Daily Chaos. In an auto-ab-KO kind of a world, know what I mean? Today, now, police state. Retired copper Stephen Place, who is now running for the leadership of UKIP, is here to discuss dystopia, broken politics, and various other thoroughly hilarious topics of interest. Please subscribe, like the show, share it to Facebook. Annoy Nick Clegg, who has banned this show because I deign to point out that the guy eulogised a known paedophile. 3-month ban. No shows, no Daily Chaos on Facebook. Maybe that wasn't the reason. Just a coincidence that I was discussing that the same day as the 3-month ban. Don't know. You tell me. Nick Clegg, come on. We'll have that chat. Right. Okay. Stephen Place, thank you very much indeed for coming on yet again, sir. First of all, I guess you're holed up in quarantine, sir?
I'm in Bradford at the moment. Yes. Yeah. Self-isolation.
All good fun. Right. What effects are you finding personally with that? I mean, have we gone kind of beyond surreal now, or are you finding it difficult, for example, to get shopping or going off for a wander without some police drone?
I can go for a walk. I've been going for a walk every day, and I haven't had a problem with that whatsoever. Where I live, I'm lucky because we can go down the canal or across the river, and I've got plenty of walks. That's not a worry to me at all. Shopping, the silliness has eased off now. You can actually buy things in the shops. There is some distance queuing, which is a good thing. We are behaving ourselves from that point of view. I think what we have to do, though, honestly, Ollie, is look at the holistic picture, because we're being told to stay at home. We're being told to stop away from work. I'm self-employed. Now, the company I work for are paying me 80% of my normal weekly salary for the next 3 weeks, starting this week. And after that, I don't know what will happen. Do I have to use my ISA savings? Do I have to try and join the queue of 148,000 other people trying to get on the universal credit wheel of fortune? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see from beyond the next 3 weeks. But what you have to say to yourself is, I mean, I congratulate everybody that is observing the rules and behaving themselves and doing the right thing. But the question I have is, do we really need to do that? Is it really sensible? What's going on? Because you think on Saturday, I checked the incoming flights at Heathrow. I've obviously got a lot of time on my hands. And there were 20 planes came in from to London on Saturday from New York. New York is one of the fastest, most exponential growing areas of COVID-19, and the death rate is rising quite seriously. Trump was talking about shutting it down and basically clamping it down to make it a no-go area. But we got 20 planes came in. We've got planes coming in today, yesterday, tomorrow, the day before yesterday, and the day after tomorrow, from Madrid in Spain, from Rome in Italy, from China, from America. And these people who landed on Saturday, Ollie, will have gone through passport control, got their baggage, got then into taxis on the tube, gone on the Heathrow Express into central London or wherever they've gone. They've gone out and into the ether. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they are. We don't know if they're infected or not. And it's absolute madness. And how can we expect the good people of this country to give up their income and their family life and completely turn it upside down and behave themselves, and yet we've got this going on? It's just utter nonsense to me.
What is going on with this idiocy, frankly, it seems to me, from the government? I understand some of these flights are essential flights for various reasons. Maybe it's flying British folks home, or maybe it's essential goods and stuff like that. That's fair play. But I don't understand, and have been calling, by the way, this show has been calling for an end to non-essential international travel, for example, from China, for about 2 months. As soon as basically Shanghai, the capital of China, was locked down, it seemed to many of us that, you know what, we need to stop the spread of this thing. And the government doesn't seem to have given us stuff about that. It's almost as though they want this COVID-19 to get around and to create all this kind of havoc. I don't know. Is that a conspiracy theory too far?
Well, the evidence is mounting up, isn't it? That makes it not a conspiracy theory, but perhaps a realistic theory. When you think 189 illegal immigrants crossed the channel over the weekend, and every one of them was tested for COVID-19, that means
Really?
180. But yeah, that means
Not tested positive necessarily, but given a test.
No. But given the tests. But that means, of course, 189 frontline workers on the NHS weren't tested. Yep. Because the testing kits are limited in number. Why are we testing these people? Why are we picking them up from the middle of the channel and acting as a taxi service?
In fairness,
especially this time of day.
In fairness, though, to not just the UK government, but to governments across the world, is there not a case of, you could argue maybe they're being competent, you could argue that they want this thing to spread. On the other hand, you could argue that they have been trying to have some sort of a balancing act here, whereby one, they don't create panic, and two, they try to keep the economy going. Because as Trump said, for example, I don't know, last week, what was it he said? Don't let the cure be worse than the cause. And so, in fairness, it is a difficult balancing act, is it not?
Very much so. And I have to be honest, I take my hat off to Boris and Rishi Sunak, who it was a pleasure of mine to share the platform many occasions. In 2016 with Rishi, I was living up in Northallerton at the time, in North Yorkshire, and he was the local MP, and he and I teamed up against the Green Party and the Labour Remain Party up there, and we knocked them off the pitch, no problem at all. And he's a great guy. He's very knowledgeable, and obviously he's very competent. And I think the moves they've made so far have been absolutely extraordinary. When you think the pressure they must be under to get this right, it's very, very difficult. We've shut the country down, we've stopped the economy and the wheels of industry turning. And so it is a real balancing act. I think, to be honest, they've largely got it right. I just question the validity of their argument when they say to us, stay at home, wash your hands. That's a common sense issue. But stay at home, don't see your friends, don't see your family and things like that. When we've got this, they're packing them into the tube, because Mayor Khan has reduced the tube services to that of a weekend. So therefore, they're packing in like sardines onto the tube every single day, 3-4 times a day, to go and to and from work. It spoils it, if you like. It makes no sense to me that is what would happen. It's either an all or nothing for me. We should have shut the borders, and we should have made sure that people observed what they were saying, particularly in the first 2-3 weeks, and we haven't. And we've got, as I say, we've got all these people coming in by airplane into the, and it's not. You can't tell me that every single plane that's landed. There are dozens of planes landing in London Heathrow, London Gatwick, Manchester, Newcastle, from all over the world every day. They're not all repatriation flights. They're certainly not. And there you have it. And we've seen today on the news that there are girls in Peru who can't get home on an aeroplane. There was a couple of women, they're out in Cambodia. They can't get a plane home. She said she spent £8,500 in overtime, as it were, being there, and they can't get back. So we have people across the world that are abandoned and struggling to get back home. So these repatriation flights, yeah, they need to be done. But we've still got people coming. The airports are open, Ollie. They're open for business, and people are coming in.
Yeah, it's incredible. I'm just thinking that saga on board that cruiser. What was it? The thingy Princess.
Yeah, the Ocean Princess. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was what, 2 months ago,
and it was, yeah.
and we're still seeing. In fairness, a lot of people probably were not taking it seriously. We're seeing that in the UK, for example, with people having their karaoke parties. Even this weekend, there's a lot of people that just are not taking it seriously and seem to have been asleep.
But then you see the real life stories about the two doctors frontline doctors who have lost their lives through
Yes.
COVID-19, and apparently it's a direct result of COVID-19. There are no underlying factors. Which this underlying factors thing for me, we'll talk about it if you wish. That muddies the waters somewhat.
Well,
But
one thing with this, I mean, that's awful to hear about those health workers. Of course it is. It's terrible. It's very tragic. But one thing about this whole COVID-19 thing is, can we actually trust that people are being diagnosed correctly? I mean, for example, if I look at the figures which are behind me, I mean, according to the figures, China, which has 2 billion people or something, they reckon they've just had 80. Yeah. They reckon they've had 81,000 cases with 3,300 deaths. Maybe it is true. Maybe we can trust a one-party sort of faux communist state. Hey, apparently, according to the mainstream media, we should. The narrative is correct. According to them, these figures coming out of the US, 145,000 cases, 97,000 in Italy with 10,789 deaths, which is more than 10%. But can we actually trust any of these figures? For example, given that the testing kits in Spain, they reckon last week, the doctors were up in arms saying most of these things are giving inaccurate results. Only about 30% of them are accurate. Made in China, by the way, those testing kits.
Yeah. They sent millions of pounds of the testing kits over to Spain. They don't work with the Chinese. That should tell you something, shouldn't it? But the other thing with this is that you have to, let's put some perspective on here, because in China they've got 1.42 billion people. That's their population. They've had 3,300 deaths. The USA have got 333 million people as their population. So far, they've had 2,384 deaths. The UK here, we have 67.7 million people living in this country. And sadly, we've had 1,228 deaths. But then you go back and you look in history, which I have done today. The Spanish flu in 1918 killed between 50 and 100 million people. HIV and AIDS has killed 36 million people across the world.
Well, flu kills 1 in 10. Yeah. Regular flu, according to the
300 million worldwide until we eradicated it in 1980. So we have to have a degree of perspective here on this.
The problem with this thing, though, Stephen, is it not, is that it is so contagious. In itself, it may not be such a killer. It's that there are not the resources in the health services around the world to cope with this sudden influx. And therefore, you could argue, in a way, this coronavirus thing is not such a big deal in itself, but because
the ability to deal with it.
Exactly.
Look how quickly we've got that Excel hospital up. You know, it's there's 2 big halls, they're a kilometre long. They say they can take 4,000. I don't know how many's going in, but there are up to 4,000 beds there. We could replicate that and have field hospitals in Manchester and Leeds and Newcastle, wherever we need, Birmingham, because the Midlands, it looks like it's been a bit of a hotspot, but obviously London's overtaken that. We could have these field hospitals up and running. We've got electricians, we've got the knowledge, we've got the know-how, we've got the skills. We can have those hospitals up and running as soon as possible. We've got Dysons and McLaren Formula One. They're all coming up with their own versions, but workable versions of ventilators. So it seems to me that the government and the attitude of the British people and the industry of the British people, the forethought, and we've got it. We're going to be able to manage it. Not a problem at all. I don't see a big problem with that. My question is, how long can they reasonably expect the British people to stay at home? That's the big burning question for me. I think another 2 or 3 weeks, we'll probably get away with it, no problem. If they start saying June, July, I think they're going to have problems. And one thing I do know is that there just aren't enough police officers to cope with any large-scale disturbances and large-scale problems. There just aren't. So
we're going to talk about policing in a little while, and about the Coronavirus Act as well, and the ramifications of that in the future, and how we can get rid of that act in the future, hopefully. But I also am minded the fact that you're running for the leadership of UKIP now. Tell me, first of all, please, what has been UKIP's position with regards the stopping of international flights since we saw that this was a problem that was out of control in China, and China having been a hub for the rest of the world in terms of the supply chain? Clearly, that was going to be a problem. But many of us did predict it back 2 months ago. Where was UKIP on that, please?
Right. Let me caveat this leadership thing, because the leadership competition was open to anybody to put a deposit in. You had to have 10 people assent you, and then you submitted your application, which I've done. And now I'm waiting for the full vetting procedure and a formal interview to take place before I'm actually formally endorsed, as it were, as a formal candidate. So I have to be very careful what I'm saying, Ollie, because I'm not officially a candidate, although I've submitted my application to be so. And I've also, of course, got to be very wary and very careful that I don't drop into what could be seen as campaigning, because that would be unfair to other leadership contenders.
Right.
UKIP's always had the policy has been in place since 2005, I believe, that we wanted an Australian points immigration system. We were the first to advocate that. We've advocated it for many years. We've been called racist and xenophobic, Little Englanders, and all this kind of thing. We've had everything, and the kitchen sink and the pans thrown at us for that. The Tory party have now adopted that policy, of course, so that's going to be the future. With regards to press releases and trying to get back on the pitch, as it were, I'm the spokesman for Home Affairs, which includes obviously the immigration aspect and policing, law and order, etc. And so we put press releases out. We've had them on education. We've had them on anything that sort of comes up that becomes a topical subject. We've put out press releases. The problem is the press aren't willing to pick them up at the moment. We haven't got that voice. And that's where we need to get back to be. If you look at the state of, I don't want to go into it, but quickly, if you look at the state of currently of the Labour Party, I still believe very strongly that the Labour Party could and possibly will split because of the far left momentum groups and supporters of Rebecca Long-Daly and Richard Bergen and Angela Rayner, and then you've got the more moderate candidates of Keir Starmer and Lisa Nandy.
Really? Well, Keir Starmer? Isn't he one of the guys that was trying to cover up the mass rape, torture and murder gangs?
But compared to the far left momentum, I think they're to be seen as a little bit more moderate. That's why I still think they could.
Bit of rape is better than bit less rape.
Well, that's it. That's what they're about, isn't it?
Keir Starmer is essentially another Blair right now, the kind of character that would do another Iraq without thinking about it if it would sort out his CV.
That's right.
No?
Yeah. Oh, they're all. Don't get me wrong. They've all got massive faults with them. And Richard Bergen, for instance, he's even fit to be an MP.
I thought he was. Wasn't he Benny in Crossroads?
Or something like that. But he came out with. He was interviewed by Andrew Neil, if you remember, and he said that. He hadn't said that Zionism is the enemy of the Palestinians. And he kept, I haven't said that, that's not the way I think. And then there was a damn video of him absolutely shouting and bawling it at a meeting. The man's a complete utter liar. And some of the things they put out on Twitter begs you to wonder whether they're actually fit enough to be an MP, let alone stand for the leadership of the party.
Strikes me as a total moron.
Labour Party are in big
I have
trouble.
To say. Sorry. Come on, Mr. Bergen, have a chat with me. But frankly, you strike me as being a total moron. But then they all do, pretty much. Apart from Keir Starmer, who doesn't seem, he seems like a very, very bright crook.
Yeah.
Am I being unfair? But actually, though, the Labour Party is irrelevant. They're in the wilderness for another 4.5 years.
Well,
they
that's
have
my
no
point
hope.
I'm trying to make. There's a massive chasm there on the theatre of politics in this country, and the country is crying out for a common sense party that talks to and talks of the people of this country, the hard-working, decent British people of this country, and that has to be and would be and should be a party like UKIP. And we've got to get back on the pitch, Ollie. You know, we're not even in the stands or in the bloody car park at the moment. We're nowhere. We're walking to the ground. We're nowhere to be seen, and that's where we've got to get back on the pitch with some common sense policies. We've got to stop the infighting. We've got to unite, and we've got to come together. Or else we may as well just put our coats on and turn the lights off.
Why do we need, just plain devil's advocate here, why do we even need UKIP now? I mean, UKIP over the last 4 years or so, post-Farage basically, has been one disaster after another. And it has just looked absolutely pitiful in terms of its impact in British politics since about 3 elections ago, when it had actually done very well. And one could argue had been instrumental in getting us that EU referendum. And where that's going now is another question we'll come on to.
I mean, we can go back over that. But
UKIP,
my view of it is this, that we've had a series... Come on, sorry.
No, well, what is the point of a party which apparently is so broken?
Well, it's not. There's 2 issues there. Does the country need a third party, a party of common sense policies that talk to the people and ask the questions that they're all asking, but they're too afraid to ask? Yes, absolutely. In my opinion, we certainly do. And that's without a doubt. Therefore, my view of it is that somebody could start a new party, but usually it takes between 5 and 10 years, or as in Farage's recent expedition with the Brexit Party, an awful lot of money to suddenly get up there, and it takes time. UKIP is established. It's been established for 30 years. Yes, we've had the last 4 years of nonsense going on, and I've been a part of that. It's, you know, I've been in it and amongst it and seen it, and I could regale you with the stories, but what's the point? It's all gone and past now. So UKIP has got to do 2 things. One, turn the lights off and go home, call it a day, which I'm not prepared to do. I'm doing this for my granddaughters and my sons and my friends and my family and the other people that I deal with every day-to-day basis, being a councillor in Bradford, etc. So we can't, for me, I'm not going to let it die. I'll fight tooth and nail to not let it die. The second point is we need to get back into mainstream politics. If it wasn't for UKIP, don't misunderstand this. If it wasn't for UKIP and the hard-working members that were out day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out, leafleting, doing stalls, talking to people, town hall events, politics in the pub, going to schools, talking to young people, being vilified, taking on the chin, being called racist and all that kind of thing. If it wasn't for UKIP and the dogged determination and the bloody mindedness of their wonderful, wonderful members, we would not have had an EU referendum, and we would not now be out of the EU. And I was part of it, and I know that happened. So UKIP needs to come back and grow up, basically.
Why? Okay, let me put it to you another way then, because Nigel Farage, obviously a massive name, and perhaps single-handedly more instrumental than UKIP as a whole in obtaining that EU referendum. That's very debatable, I think, actually, but nonetheless, argument for that. He has set up, what was it, the Brexit Party. They kind of did their job, I guess. And then off the back of... Let me finish my question, Stephen.
Yeah,
off the back of that, and off the back of the last election, Boris reckoned that he was going to get Brexit done. He seems to reckon that he has got Brexit done, even though we're still subordinate to the European Court of Justice and are still in the customs union and the single market until the end of the year at least. It seems, I don't know how Brexit is done when the 3 tenets of Brexit are none of them met, but apparently, according to him, chucking 30 billion quid to the EU coffers for nothing at all is getting Brexit done.
Yep.
We will see, and I'll come on to that point with you. But so far as that's concerned, if Brexit's been done, or at least we're on the path to Brexit through that ridiculous withdrawal agreement, frankly, in my opinion, the Brexit Party was done. And Farage seems to think it's done. He seems to have retired again. Or is there going to be this new Farageist reform party that he's talking about as a kind of a foil to this duopolistic politics that we've had in the UK Parliament over the last 20 years or so?
My reason for joining UKIP was because I believe that this country should not be governed and under the auspices of this ridiculous EU. The EU is actually imploding at the moment. So thank God we're not in it. So
well,
I
are we
joined UKIP
not?
for that.
I mean,
joined UKIP for that. And Nigel was, he was a talisman, and he was the reason that I joined. And I joined UKIP for that. Not a problem at all.
Stephen, just taking you to task on that before you fulfill the answer to that question, please. I have to ask you, how is it that we're not still in the EU? If the ECB, the European Central Bank, goes down, we're in hock to the tune of hundreds of billions, as I understand it.
Ollie, we are still in the EU. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, every day last week, every day this week, somebody in Whitehall will press the enter button and send a backs payment to the EU of £55 million a day, every day. We're still paying. We're still paying. We're still
But
there.
that you could argue that bit is like a divorce settlement. You could also argue.
Maybe it is. Maybe you could say that, but it's still going on. My God, what could we do with 55 million quid every day in this country right now? But we're still paying them. We are still in the EU. We have not left the EU, and they keep talking about extending the time we've got now to cut the deal. Obviously, because of this situation that we're in at the moment. A conspiracy theorist would say, well, isn't that part of it? Isn't that reason why then try and keep us in the EU? The EU is collapsing. The remaining 27 cannot decide when to have a meeting, to organise, to plan for another meeting. Italy is being fined every day because they've supported their hotel industry.
Disgusting.
It's absolute madness. So let the EU deal with what they have to do. We're still paying in. We have got bigger fish to fry. But make no mistake, if it wasn't for UKIP, we would still be in that bloody gang, and we would still be getting.
Why do we need UKIP? We'll come back to that.
Because I think
why do we need UKIP when we're going to have Farage as the Reform Party, and Nigel Farage is frankly so much more popular than anybody in UKIP, whether we like it or not.
Number one, I know a lot of people that were involved with the Brexit Party that left UKIP, particularly in Bradford and Yorkshire, and they went and joined the they went and joined the Brexit Party. Well, they didn't join; they subscribed. It was a massively different model. They gave 25 quid over. I know lots and lots of people that paid 100 quid to go for an assessment to be an MP when there's little or no chance of doing that. So there was apparently something like about 8 million quid went into the bank of the Brexit Party. And then I know people that stood in Bradford in the 5 different constituencies in Bradford, and then they pulled the plug on them. They did all that work, the preparation. They were going around doing events. They were campaigning. They were making videos. They were having radio and newspaper interviews. They were doing stall days and setting up. There were campaigns going on for Kick Out Cooper in Castleford. I gave some speeches in Castleford for the Kick Out Cooper campaign, which was then taken over, if you like, by the Brexit Party with the lady who was their member, their candidate, and the plug was pulled, my friend. They were just completely let down. If Nigel Farage comes back and says, right, I'm going to start the Reform Party, the main issue of it is to get rid of the House of Lords. I don't think that people are going to be that quick and that gullible to hand over another 25 quid to subscribe to his party, when there's only one director, and there's only one leader, and only one member of that party, and that's him. I just don't think they're going to do it. I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But UKIP is a proper. We've got branches still. We've got the regions still set up. We've got the setup is still there. It's proven. It's tested. It does want tweaking. It needs altering and modernising. There's no doubt about it. Constitution wants to be looked at. But beyond that, we could, if you look at our manifesto. Brexit and beyond, it's got some fantastic new thinking, and and
well, hold on. We'll come on to that. But Stephen, let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this from a different perspective. Where we have a Conservative government that is telling us that Brexit is done, when, as we have ascertained, it is not.
It's not.
Where we have a Conservative government that is wanting to get into bed with China with regards 5G, with Huawei, which is a company that can be recruited as a Chinese spy at the behest of the Chinese government under Chinese law, and completely flies in the face of the whole Five Eyes network and all the rest of it. That's why Trump is aghast to it, absolutely crazy, absolutely crazy. Where we have a Conservative government that is basically lying about Brexit, frankly, so far. It may well come true on Brexit. It may well, and I hope it does, but it hasn't yet. That wants to get into bed with China, which clearly is a state with concentration camps and God knows what, that we cannot trust and should not do anything with, frankly. Should have nothing to do with.
Absolutely.
Where we have a so-called conservative, big C, not small c, conservative government that is doing these kind of things. Clearly, we do need some sort of a check and balance to that. And we would hope, many of us, irrespective of our politics, we would want checks and balances on all sides of the political argument, if you believe in democracy, that somebody like UKIP or the Reform Party would fit that role. The problem that there is there not, is that the Brexit Party and UKIP are eating into each other's votes and diminishing the power of either. And actually, the way it has worked has that Nigel Farage has had the power and UKIP has just been shoved into a corner, looking like an idiot, frankly, and assisted by its own NEC, which looks, frankly, as though it works for Nigel Farage and the Brexit Party or the Reform Party or whatever it's called this week.
Well, I mean, I obviously, for obvious reasons that I've explained, I can't comment to that, and I won't. But in terms of the Brexit Party, it's done. They've sacked all.
But you have to. You have to, Stephen.
They've closed all their offices, and I'll be happy if I'm confirmed as a candidate. Ollie, I would love to come back on. I would love to come back on and tell you about UKIP, my plans for UKIP as a candidate. I'm not confirmed as a candidate yet, so I really can't attest to that.
I do think
I'm going to damage my chances of passing vetting and being approved as a candidate for the party, and I don't want to do that. You'll understand that, I hope.
Okay, fair enough.
The day after I'm approved as a candidate, Ollie, I would love to come back on your show and talk to you about UKIP in depth.
Well, I hear what you say about the Brexit Party is kind of maybe it's doing something, maybe it isn't. Is Farage in retirement? Is he coming out of retirement? I mean, he's like goes up and down like a political yo-yo, that guy.
Well, it frankly. Does, yeah. I mean, as far as I'm aware, Nigel's back on LBC Radio. He's been helping out Trump over there. He'll be definitely involved in November onwards. He's the opening warm-up guy, isn't he, for the Trump circus? And he's under contract with LBC Radio, etc., to do that and Fox News, and so that's where he will be. I don't think Nigel. I mean, if he does want to come back to mainstream politics, I don't know if Richard Tice will come back or not. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But they would need an awful lot of money again. I don't think the Tory donors are going to be as supportive as they were before. I think it'll be a big mountain for him to climb. I really do. And also, please just bear in mind that throughout the time of the Brexit Party, its existence, they only had one policy, and that was obviously leave the EU. They had no other policies. They didn't get anybody elected. They've never got anybody elected at local level. If they claim to have councillors, they're all defectors, mainly from UKIP, to that party. So, and also, I think a lot of people have had their fingers burnt with the Brexit Party. So that's where I still believe that UKIP could come back and as it were, rise from the ashes as a phoenix and say to the people, look, we're still here. We've got these new policy ideas. This is where we're at. This is what we're offering to the country.
I hear what you say about not being able to comment particularly about the NEC at the moment. But nonetheless, I do feel an obligation to ask the questions and to point out, as somebody who talks to a lot of folks who have had involvement in UKIP and with the Conservative Party and with other parties, the grassroots are absolutely fed up to the back teeth of UKIP, which they wonder, I think in many, many cases, if it isn't just a giant scam. And the reason I say that is because the membership, by and large, supported leadership candidates the last time round, the time round before that they were denied. In the last time round, Gerard Batten wasn't even allowed to run. And I think the thoughts of the membership who have since drifted off in their droves and said, sod UKIP, there seems to have been that the people running UKIP was anti-democratic, did not give a damn about the wishes of the membership, were only interested in padding their own fiefdoms. Is this at least a perception, if not a truth, that UKIP is going to be able to turn around and
I believe so. I believe so under new strong leadership and new strong management. I believe it's definitely. I wouldn't have gone to all this trouble and put myself forward and I've had some. I've had some criticism, let's say. I won't term it abuse, so I've had criticism already. And you're going to get that, but I've got broad shoulders and it's water for ducks back to me. But at the end of the day, my heart is with UKIP and my heart is with the party that I believe should come back to the main theatre of politics in this country and have something good to say and offer the people of the country a different perspective and a different way forward. I also, if you look at the time that the Tory and the Labour Party and the Lib Dems have actually been about, I think the Tories are 100 and something years. Labour Party is about 96 years old. UKIP's 24 years old. Majority of that time, we were a single issue campaigning group, really. So as a political party in the last 4 years, since Brexit was achieved and the referendum was achieved, we've had to grow up pretty quickly. And my God, we've put ourselves through the ringer and through the grindstone. We really, really have. And on a lot of cases, in a lot of ways, there's absolutely no excuse for it. You can go back to Diane James and Paul Nuttall and the absolute disaster that was Stoke, the by-election there. I was there trying to help out and things like that. But it has the ban the burqa thing, which was actually part of a whole. But we didn't have the whereabouts to say, hang on a minute, this is not just all about ban the burqa. There was a whole plethora here, following on from Dame Louise Casey's report on how we can empower Muslim women. That was the basics.
That's right.
Of that thing, but it was the ban, and we'd not got the people that were capable of standing up to Sky TV, standing up to Daily Politics, standing up to Emily Maitlis and saying, what on earth are you talking about? Is that the best you can do? Because you've got this wrong. Let me explain why. We never got that chance. And then it went on and on and on and on. And I can remember Question Time, Paul Nuttall, there were plenty of people in the audience, and at the right time they were asked the questions to have a pop and have a go and ridicule him. The British press.
But also, Stephen, in fairness, my experience of UKIP is that the vast majority of the senior folks in UKIP don't even want to talk to the grassroots on a show like this. And so, if they're not going to take advantage of grassroots channels of communication. I can't agree with you more.
That's why I'm here. I've been on this show 3 or 4 times
You are a
now.
rare exception, sir.
I'm happy to come on and I will talk to anybody. I just have to, obviously, as I said, for my own for obvious reasons, I have to be very careful what I say and what pathways I stray down, because I do not want to in any way impede myself going through the vetting and the interview panel. Once I'm confirmed as a candidate, I was very happy to come forward and put forward my ideas and my policy ideas, the way I see the party going in the future, because I have very definite ideas about that, based on the fact that I am a grassroots member.
Yeah, I know you.
I've had and I've been part of some of the things that have gone on, so yeah, I feel somewhat disenfranchised, but we have to get back to being a mainstream political party.
Okay, a few quick fire questions on UKIP
Yep.
before we move on. First of all, please, the actual leadership election, when is it due? Any idea?
Well, we were supposed to announce the leader on the 5th of June. But the next step now is to hold the interviews. There's only two candidates. The next step is to hold the interviews and do the vetting of these two candidates, myself and Freddie Vatcher from London. And then we have to, once we're confirmed as candidates, we then have hustings. Now, before, the hustings have been a complete utter mess. Different candidates have been able to go to different branches where they've been invited. Other candidates were not allowed to go to those different branches because they weren't favoured or whatever. That's been put a stop to, and I absolutely agree with this. There are now will be properly arranged, streamed hustings where the two candidates can go and put forward their case, and I agree with that. And then the last election that was held last year, those candidates, my God, you know, they were in Northern Ireland one day, Newcastle the next, down to Portsmouth, then back up to Scotland. It was an absolute shambles.
Mm-hmm.
And so this time it really is being organised, I hope, properly with a good timetable where candidates can get to easily without incurring massive travel costs and massive time. So
that's the
timetable.
That's going to depend also on what happens with this
obviously,
coronavirus thing as well. In terms of candidates, people are asking, so who's running, sir? You, Freddie Vatcher?
Myself, Freddie Vatcher from London. We're the only two. Just two. We're the only two that submitted our papers, submitted our deposits by the closing date.
It doesn't give people much choice, does it? Just two candidates?
Well, we can't help that. You can't twist people's arms up the back. And if there's only two want to come forward, then there's only two wants to come forward. At least it's not a coronation by the fact that, you know, say only I or Freddie had applied. Therefore, it would have been a coronation.
Why should people even bother voting for another leader after what happened to Richard Brain?
Well, if we don't, we've got to just call it a day and go home, haven't we? UKIP's finished.
Are you going to try and open up the party back to all of the people who have left somehow, including the people that disagree with you and that you disagree with?
Well, we're a democratic libertarian party, aren't we?
Well, it hasn't been. The NEC hasn't been.
Well, again, you know, I'm straying into...
I know.
I'm saying this is my point of view. You know, read between the lines. We are a democratic libertarian party. And we will continue to be so if I'm elected leader.
I've got Alan Elder Brown saying Stephen was instrumental in getting me kicked out on silly rumours. I thought we were chums, Stephen. Now, this is the kind of problem in the party, is it not, Stephen, that has to be overcome. What do you say to Alan Elder Brown?
Alan Elder Brown was, I think he lives in London or somewhere down south. I've never actually met him. So I don't know where he's got that from. He was running lots of WhatsApp groups, and they were completely out of hand at times. I left his WhatsApp group several times, and then was re-put on it, and then left again, re-put on it, and I left it eventually. And I had absolutely no impact whatsoever on Alan Elder Brown, his position in the party or whatever. But yeah, all this silly infighting and all this name calling and backbiting and rumour mills, you know, it was rumoured last year that I was closing as the regional chairman for Yorkshire. It was rumoured that and put out openly on public forums that I was closing down branches in the Yorkshire area, taking all the money out of the bank accounts to fund my campaign to be a police crime commissioner, when it's policy within UKIP that we don't agree with police crime commissioners. And at £5,000 deposit to stand as a police crime commissioner, to stand in the whole of Yorkshire in all 5 areas, we would have needed 4 areas. We would have needed £20,000. We had a regional meeting where everybody agreed that we would not be standing police crime commissioners. And then the rumours started that I was taking money, and it's just been absolutely. But the people that started those rumours are no longer members of the party by their own volition.
What would you say to Carol Weston, who says that Gerard Batten was stopped purely because he was the only politician who had the answer to Brexit, revoke the original 1972 Act that took us in. I think it was 73, wasn't it? But carry on.
That's what's been done. And I've forgotten his name.
Well, no, it hasn't. No, it hasn't been done.
Nash. Is it Nash? The MP, I've forgotten his name. Prominent MP, big tall chap, glasses, quite old, elderly, massive Brexiteer. I've forgotten his name. Sorry. He's
Cash. Bill Cash.
Bill Cash. He's been on about revoking the 72. But Gerard's book.
But they didn't do it. They didn't
Gerard's
do it.
book.
But Gerard Batten was calling for that. What do you say to Carol?
Absolutely. He was. He wrote the book, didn't he, about how to extricate ourselves from the EU. And it was a very good book.
Why didn't UKIP get behind that? Go on.
Well, we did, as far as I'm aware. One of our policies was to revoke the 72 Act, which would have made us out. That would have been it. But I thought Gerard's book was a sound document. I really did, and it was what UKIP should be all about. It was common sense, practical thinking, and that's what we should have done. It's on record that I thought that Gerard should have been allowed to stand, and it's also on record that the reopening of the election after Gerard was disallowed for 4 days to allow Richard Brain and Freddie Thatcher to stand, I thought was wrong, because the closing date had been and gone, and they hadn't put thrown their caps in the ring prior to that. So
Has Richard Brain actually left the party now?
I don't know. As far as I'm aware, he has. I don't honestly know. But again, with Richard, 3 days after he was elected, I met him in Leeds with my regional organiser. I was a regional chair then. We had a 2-hour meeting with him in Leeds about going forward and attracting candidates for the local council elections, which would have been this May. It was a very positive meeting. I had several conversations with him after that, where I was supporting him and trying to help him out. And then it all blew up and went ridiculous, and nothing to do with me. Because I didn't have anything to do with it. It was all infighting and arguing within the management team, and I wasn't part of the management team.
Okay, Stephen. So I'm just trying to foresee a future with UKIP, with some sort of counterbalance to the Conservative Party. Frankly, somebody to basically keep them kicked up the bottom.
Somebody has to. The Labour Party are all about staying in.
Well, the Labour Party is absolutely bloody useless, full of pseudo-Marxist claptrap. But is not the only way, realistically, for UKIP to attract a membership that matters again, and so maybe not go bankrupt for a start, is to have an amnesty and to say to people like Gerard Batten, Richard Brain, John Rhys-Evans, Anne-Marie Waters, come back into the party. We don't agree on everything, but you know what? We do have Britain's interests first, which is unlike, for example, arguably a Conservative government that wants us to, give away half of our 5G man-in-the-middle attack opportunities, rootkit opportunities, God knows what, to a communist regime on the other side of the world. Do we not need to see an amnesty in UKIP?
Yeah, the fallout from UKIP and the machinations of what's gone on are the Libertarian Party, the English Democrats, Anne-Marie Waters' party, John Rhys-Evans' party, and several other small disparate groups. And what we need to do is, I think yes, there's value in maybe, I don't think in talking to them, but I don't think, for instance, Anne-Marie Waters would want anything to do with UKIP. I don't think John Rhys-Evans would want. Is John Rhys-Evans even in politics anymore? I don't think he is.
That isn't entirely the point, is it? The point is UKIP prepared to be mature enough and open-minded enough and responsible enough to the membership that it had formed off the back of its great success in helping to secure the EU referendum? That membership back, is it not a responsibility and the adult thing to do to say, look, whether or not you want to come back is up to you, but we would like you to come back. We need to open up the church genuinely and without any of this crooked political chicanery that we saw from the very top of the NEC, for example, throughout the last 3 years?
I think UKIP, there is value in UKIP talking to anybody.
So is that a hand outstretched?
Well, no,
sir?
I think there's, I have to be very careful, Ollie, because as I said, I would hate to think as a result of this TV, interview and show that I scuppered my chance to be a candidate. I would be absolutely gutted. What I'm saying is, I think there is value for UKIP going forward as a libertarian democratic party in talking to anybody. You know, when you think we're under Nigel, we spoke to Five Star, we spoke to Amarim at the Pen, we spoke to all sorts of people throughout Europe, and I still think there is massive value in engaging with people and talking to them going forward, absolutely without a doubt. You can't close the door on everybody, because then you would be a big echo chamber.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. I've given you a bit of a hauling over the coals so far as UKIP's concerned, and I appreciate you answering as best you did. And I do understand that you have certain things that you can't quite say at this stage of the vetting process, because UKIP's NEC is so crap. But hopefully that will change. That's my opinion. MSN.com has a pretty concerning story, which it seems to me is going to affect most of us around the world now. Italy risks losing grip in the south with a fear of looting and riots, as Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte fights to hold Italian society together through a crippling nationwide lockdown. The depressed south is turning into a powder keg. Police have been deployed on the streets of Sicily's capital, Palermo. Amid reports, gangs are using social media to plot attacks on stores. A bankrupt ferry company halted service to the island, including vital supplies of food and medicines. As the state creaks under the strain of the coronavirus pandemic, officials worry the mafia may be preparing to step in. And so it goes on. And we're seeing, for example, the police refusing to police no-go zones in Paris, people that do not share the social values of traditional French people, quite frankly. And also there is a grave concern of this now in London, with its no-go zones, as already are the case, exacerbated by this crisis, Stephen. What are we actually moving into here? What should people be prepared for?
It's scary, isn't it? It's scary. I mean, I can't attest to Italy. All I would say to Italy is they've got to look to Brussels for help and amongst their fellow member states. And the fact that they're not getting any, the fact that they're being fined, the fact that they sent £20 million worth of aid for this COVID-19, the EU, to Iran. Yet one of their own member states, Italy, is struggling and creaking under the pressures of this, and they're fining them every day for supporting their industry. And I mean, it's beyond parody. It's ridiculous. So I do hope that Italy survives. I do hope that there isn't large civil unrest moving to this country. At the moment, I think there is an element within our society that will take advantage of this without a doubt. The worry for me would be is if they become organised. If there are different bands and areas where people have had enough and they take to the streets, and a lot of it will be just opportunistic looting, opportunistic bad behaviour, we can clamp down on that depending on what the government is. And I know Boris is quite a libertarian. He must excuse me, he must have wrestled with his conscience about
Sorry, go on.
He must have wrestled with his conscience about bringing into play these current lockdown situation that we have, and it was clearly written all over his face that he was doing that. But we've got it, and we're adhering to it. The people, the genuinely good people of this country, are adhering to it, and they're behaving, and they're doing as they're told. How long that will last, I don't know. But I do feel that if you get places, particularly in London, within the M25, that blow up, it'll be the usual suspects, and in terms of geographical locations, it'll be the usual suspects, and it's up to the government then, Priti Patel, to clamp down on it, and clamp down on it hard with the army or the police, however which way she decides to do it. When I first, joined the police in '78, Margaret Thatcher employed Willie Whitelaw, I've said this before, as a Home Secretary. And we were told to adopt a zero tolerance policy to antisocial behaviour, drunkenness, and general petty crime. And we did. And we clamped down on it, and we worked hard. But there were plenty of coppers, and there were plenty of magistrates' courts, and plenty of prison places, and plenty of heavy fines doled out. And I'll tell you what, it worked. It damn well worked. And this namby-pamby la-di-da sort of attitude.
Society was so different.
There was a guy the other day, Ollie. He took part in a Knightsbridge raid, which netted 435 grand. He's an illegal immigrant, and he was given 18 months nick. I mean, what are we playing at?
Yeah, sure.
So that's where we are at the moment. So it's up to the Tories. They're supposed to be the party of law and order. I'm hoping they're going to make contingencies for this. I think it possibly will erupt. I think it possibly will have pockets of it here, there, and everywhere. But as I said to you, the problem will come if it becomes like the Gilets jaunes, etc., and it's organised.
Well, people can't get out on the streets now, can they? To do that kind of stuff. I mean, it's been very convenient.
They can if they wanted to. As I say, at the moment, the British public, by and large, are being very, very good. They're being fabulous, fantastic, actually. True Brits, aren't they? They're observing and behaving. They're doing what they have to do.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's the way it's being portrayed by the media.
Yeah,
but for all I know,
there are pockets where things have happened, like parties and things like that. Those people, I mean, they were in part of Bradford the other day. There was a big party. The police went in and fined every single person at that party 30 quid and dispersed them. And that's the powers they've got. Second offence, you fine 60 quid. 120 quid. And then it doubles again if you find, and then under certain circumstances where it's deemed necessary, the power of arrest is employed.
Is there not a concern though? Because whereas back in the 70s, when Willie Whitelaw was Home Secretary, it was a totally different society.
And completely,
so for example, in Italy now, Italy is a relatively joined up society. Same in Spain, where I am based in Valencia. It's a very, very joined up society compared to the UK, where it's a ghetto society now, with a whole bunch of abstract cultures that are trying to, do this multiculturalism thing to the greatest extent is actually working, but with a notable exception, with some extreme hard cases. And this is now a perfect opportunity for them potentially to raise Cain. They don't need suicide vests now. They just need to go around and cough at people or something. And are we not in a very fragile society to be able to deal with this crisis head on in a way where we're just not going to see a whole bunch of other problems come up through the cracks?
I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're there yet at all.
What about in 2 weeks' time?
Well, in two, it depends what they come out with. I mean, if we're still on lockdown and they say, right, till the end of June, I think this government and this nation of ours are going to have some major problems. Again, I don't think it will be the likes of myself and my brother-in-law, my sister, who've got their own businesses, and and my sons who work in social housing, and it won't be those guys. It will be the criminal element within our society that rise up and do this.
Yeah,
and it will be different. It will be different. Communities based in our society that will clearly, obviously take advantage of this.
So conversely, what do you think of the police tactics so far, where, for example, Derbyshire police are overstepping the mark, are they not?
Derbyshire were disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful, Derbyshire police. They should apologise and they should rethink what they're doing, because two people who were living together, walking up on the Derbyshire peaks, I think, what on earth is wrong with that? What on earth is wrong with that? When you've got large urban and city centre areas where people are just not observing the distancing in any way, shape or form. They're not observing segregation, staying indoors in any way, shape or form. And there's lots of evidence to suggest that they're not doing that. And the police really do need to. It's either the same has to apply for everybody, or if not, this is going to collapse completely within the next few weeks.
Okay, let's take a few comments, see what people have got to say. Miss Patriot 74 is talking to Tanis. Carlos, not many cars on the road on way to work today, so maybe people are self-isolating and listening to Bojo. Amanda Rolfson says someone getting fined for walking their dog on the moors miles from nowhere, no one around. Madness or what? The British Hive Mind.
Madness. I agree with that. Yeah, crazy.
Well, actually, yes. On the other hand, there's also an argument to say, is there not, Stephen, that you have to have one rule for everybody. Otherwise, there is an aura of unfairness, and then but there could be unrest off the back of that.
Then it's down then to divisional commanders within the police force to use their resources wisely and having I forgot the name of them. I'm having a mental breakdown here. The things that fly about in the sky and take
the drones.
Drones. Goodness me. Having drones flying over the moors to try and catch people walking the dogs. There was a story the other day where a lady and her daughter were out. They lived together. They were out walking at about 9:30 at night. They'd chosen to go out at 9:30 at night, and two police officers, women police officers, female, stopped them in a van. They were driving a van and said, "What are you doing? This? We're going out for a walk." Well, don't you think this is the wrong time to go out for a walk? Absolutely not. They can go out for a walk whenever they bloody well like. You know, it's just that is beyond the pale to me. And so there are certain circumstances where obviously they are overstepping the mark, and certain circumstances where they're being a little bit silly. But when you look at large population areas where people are still congregating, how can you find somebody for walking their dog on the moors when there are tens of thousands of people catching the tube and packing in like sardines? That would be my argument at court. I would not pay that fine. I would go to prison, but I would not pay that fine.
I'm in quarantine in Spain. This is, I don't know, beginning of week 3 now. Yeah. And we're not even allowed to go out for a walk. We're allowed to go. I'm only saying this because I'm airing a grievance because we're allowed to go shopping. And it's all the queue up stuff. I think everybody's doing that everywhere now. We're allowed to go to the bins with our rubbish. God bless you, Spanish government. Thank you for that. And so I find myself going from one bin to the other bin over the other side of the neighbourhood, back to the first bin, back to the second bin, to the first bin, because the only way I can get any bloody exercise. And you lucky bastards in the UK, I have to say. Anyway, the British Hive Mind says, the police don't have the power to fine. They can only issue fixed penalty notices.
That's true.
Hey, British Hive Mind. Hello, mate.
I mean, it's terminology, isn't it? You know, they issue a fixed penalty notice for £30, and then if you pay within a certain amount of time, it's reduced, I believe. But if not, then they'll take you to court, and you'll have to pay it is a fine in effect, isn't it? But you'll have to pay it. But I think there's a massive argument, judicial review on whether you would need to pay that fine at the moment in time. If it was like Spain and Italy, where it's a complete no, you are locked down, you cannot go out of your home, then that's a different issue. If somebody's walking their dog on the moors, or somebody's going to pray in a park, then it needs sorting out. But at the moment, it's so sketchy and it's so open to abuse. That people are taking advantage of it.
I've just put a number in the comments for people to call in if they want to have a chat. I do normally put details in the spiel at the top of the show with the number, and today I genuinely forgot. I've just put the number in the comments. If anybody wants to call in, you're very, very welcome. Thank you. That's a Skype number. It's a UK national rate number. Jamie Mitchell says, if you're on the moors with no people, I do not see a problem. Sam JP is saying to Alan Elder Brown, I'm sure you are both good people. Please phone in and talk to one another without fighting. We need an amnesty, people. We need an amnesty. The country is bigger than any of us. I'm sure that everybody agrees with that. David Laddie is talking to Miss Patriot. Charles Spencer, no cars on the road because they're all at home guarding their toilet roll hoards. And Sam JP says we can walk an hour a day with or without a dog or family member. Carol Weston, I've seen a photo of goods sectioned off in a supermarket as not essential, like toys and clothes. Who are the government to say what's essential? Do we stop kids having presents for birthdays?
Well, it was my granddaughter's birthday on Saturday, and I didn't get to see her, and obviously I haven't been able to buy anything for her, but I will do. We'll have a big party for her when she's when this is over.
Aye. Stephen, where do you see this going? It seems to me that we are so in the dark about all of this. We don't know the true statistics. We don't know how serious this whole thing is. We don't know how much the figures are being conflated with figures for example, regular flu and stuff like that.
Well, that's the issue, isn't it?
And also, we don't know, given the catalogue of lies over the entirety of my lifetime, actually, from the mainstream media, the fake stream media. We don't know what we can or cannot trust from the mainstream media as well. And I'll give you an example. And this is something that is very, very concerning to me, because we're in this situation where basically 1/3 of the world's population is in lockdown now, where our businesses are just being cast, out of the window, basically, flushed down the toilet and all the rest of it, all of that. And we don't even know or even are allowed to question why we're here. If the mainstream media the fake stream media is to be believed, it's because of some bloke ate bat soup in a Chinese market. That's the Chinese version of events. Believe it, pleb. That's it. If you believe anything else, you're a conspiracy theorist, when actually I'm really, really racking my brains. It strikes me that the theory that this did come from a laboratory in Wuhan is a more valid explanation. This peculiar virus, which has got HIV woven into it somehow as well. It just seems to me
I've also heard
half the question's very nearly there, sir. It seems to me it's very, very difficult for us ordinary, regular folks to know what to believe remotely, given that the mainstream media isn't even asking these kind of important, crucial questions.
Yeah. I mean, if I was Boris Johnson, the national press, I would ban them from the press conferences, and I would invite regional press, who are much more likely to be a little bit more circumspect and a bit more truthful. I would ban the national press. They're an absolute disgrace to this country. The BBC in particular, Sky News, Channel 4, they're an absolute disgrace, and I would ban them. And I would, if again, going forward, if I was to be elected leader, I would only engage with those people when I've actually got something to be proud of and to share best practice and be successful with. I wouldn't want to engage with them on a day-to-day basis, because you're going to get less than anywhere near a fair chance of a fair hearing. So the national, Beth Rigby the other day asking questions about, at worst wasn't it careless, at best wasn't it careless, at worst wasn't it irresponsible for Boris and Matt Hancock to come down the virus. Have you ever heard anything like it? She should be banned, that woman.
I'm sorry, what did she say?
She said, she asked a question of Michael Gove. Isn't it at best, I think it was, I'm paraphrasing, at best careless and at worst irresponsible that Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock have got, even though it's mild. Yeah, that's what she said.
What a mad crone.
She should be kicked out. She should be kicked out of any press conferences now. What a question to ask of somebody.
What is she? She's a Labour deputy leadership candidate. No.
No. Beth Rigby's from Sky News. The main principal political commentator for Sky News. She's a disgrace. And
Yeah.
so I just think, Andrew Marr yesterday was absolutely disgraceful. They had the chief doctor, one of the chief doctors, I can't remember what pet area she was from, and he was peppering her with about PPE, and the doctor was batting it back, saying, "No, we've got adequate PPE, we've got adequate ventilators. There are more coming." And he didn't like these answers, Andrew Marr, and he got quite narky with her. And it's quite blatant what pathway they're trying to take guests down, and that the government's rubbish. We should have been. How on earth could they have possibly planned for this?
Okay, that's a conversation I'd like to continue another time. But we've got somebody called in. Hello, good afternoon, good evening,
Sorry.
good morning. Who's that?
Hi, it's Liz from South Wales.
Hey, Liz from South Wales. What would you like to ask or say?
Well, a couple of things. Gosh, good show tonight, Ollie. But I know somebody. They were sharing part of a flat share, and they've been kicked out because they are key workers, NHS staff. They've been kicked out of their flat. So other people that I know are going to have to go and help them move because there's no way they can get out in 48 hours. So everybody is absolutely terrified that if we go and help them move, that we're all going to get in trouble, fined and all sorts of stuff. Because Boris is saying, you can't kick anybody out. But key workers are being kicked out of their flats, left, right and centre.
Liz, it's Stephen, if I may, under the new legislation, it is illegal to evict anybody within the next 3 months. So I would go straight to the local police and say they're committing a criminal act by evicting us from this flat.
Right. Well, they've actually. Luckily there was a estate agent that stayed open to help people like them because apparently there are an awful lot of them. So this one estate agent has stayed open specifically to help key workers who are being kicked out of their flats.
Right.
So I don't know. Somebody said to me that that actually the legislation didn't actually protect the people. I don't know.
I think it's. I'll stand to be wrong here, Liz, but as far as I'm aware, it is absolutely within that legislation that nobody can be evicted from their home within the next 3 months. And
me too. That's what I understood.
As to going to help them move, this is a dire emergency, and I think if you observe common sense and work in pairs or to remove furniture and keep as much distance as possible, I don't think you could. And bearing in mind the situation that they're in, they are key workers within the NHS. I wouldn't have thought there'd be a great deal of problems, to be truthful, with regards to that. If there's 20, 30 of you or 10, 15 of you helping them, then I think
no, there won't be. No,
if there's 3 or 4 of you, and you're all maybe from the same family group, then I don't think there'll be a problem. So I wouldn't worry about that. But as far as I'm aware, that is the legislation. It's quite implicit that you cannot be evicted in the next 3 months.
That is that's a pretty horrid story. That's a pretty awful story.
It is. It's awful.
I'm sure there's a lot of malfeasance that continues irrespective of the situation, that's Lynn from Wales, yeah?
No, Liz.
Liz. Hey, Liz. Okay.
Liz.
Is there anything
I was
else?
very patient with you a few months ago. I was in a late night. I spoke to you in Rodders and Piers.
Go on, Liz. Go on. Why were you patient? Because Rodders was being cheeky, probably. No, I just couldn't. Well, no, it's great fun, isn't it? I just couldn't get a word in sideways, but. Liz, we're having a much more civilised show today. Is there anything else you'd like to ask or say? How are you being affected?
Sorry.
How are you being affected by this so far?
Me personally, I am very high risk, and I've had to self-isolate. And there's a couple of things I wanted to say. Anybody that thinks this is a fake, somebody extremely close to me, thank goodness they've just come out of ICU, but they've been in ICU for a fortnight, very, very nearly died. This is not a scam. It's not a scam.
There's no doubt about that, Liz. It's not a scam. Yeah.
So, I've heard people saying, it's made up. No, it's not.
There are a lot of people that are saying that it is some kind of a scam, but maybe it's just comes back to what we were discussing, Stephen, that it's so hard to trust in the statistics. What do you think of that, Liz? It is one of the problems with this coronavirus. Well, with this COVID-19 shade of coronavirus, which apparently now has 8 mutations. I was reading earlier, none of which are any more devastating than the other. Apparently, it doesn't seem to be mutating into something worse, at least. But it's. This is a very young virus for them. I do wonder how much misdiagnosis there is, and maybe the bigger problem is the fact that the NHS is overrun.
I can tell. I mean, I'm with you. I'm very sceptical about some of the figures coming out. I've heard that anybody that dies in Italy is basically being put down as a coronavirus death. Now, how true that is, I don't know. But it does. I like you. I mean, I heard rumors. I know people who live in China, and we knew of people who were saying, "Oh, everybody who comes to China last October, maybe even September." They were saying, "Everybody that comes to China gets this absolutely horrendous flu," and that was back in October. Yeah. So it makes you wonder how long it's been going on. But I'm absolutely with you 100%. The flights from China should have been stopped. Even when they knew that this was like December, at the latest January, why has it not been absolutely shut down to non-essential flights? They made a big fuss about bringing the people over from Wuhan, and it was such a rush. Some people missed the plane because they couldn't get cars to get them to the airport. Took them all the way up to Wallasey, I think it is, to a hospital by family of my own. And then the next thing, they haven't shut the borders, and anybody can come in. So it is very, very confusing, and you do have to wonder what's going on. And I'm not surprised that people are frightened. No. And personally, as a personal effect, anybody with severe lung issues, we now have an issue. We can't get our medication, because our medication is being given to the coronavirus patients. And also, one doctor told me that a lot of it is now made in the East, and they can't get it in the country.
What's this new drug that Trump has been lauding, and so has Giuliani? Something chrome. I'm not thinking of adrenochrome, yeah?
No, you're not thinking
That's another one.
The malaria.
Exactly.
Well, I've heard, I've been looking around on different things. In Australia, they reckon, not Tamiflu, but there's another drug that they use for flu. They reckon they've had 100% success using that drug. It's not Tamiflu, but it's another one that they treat the flu with.
Oh, I can't remember offhand. Somebody make a note in the comments, please. It's something chrome, which Trump has been talking about. Well, it's Hydra something chrome.
Yeah, and not the one for the fish.
No. Doesn't it end in quin? Something Hydra.
Quine.
Quin.
Yes,
quine.
Quine.
Yes,
quine.
not chrome. Keen.
Yeah, you've got adrenochrome on the brain.
Because it's got quinine, hasn't it? It's got a quinine element to it. Now, that thing, is it It's chloroquine or hydrochloroquine.
That's right.
That's what it is. And Trump's been lauding this thing for about 3 weeks, or at least he's been saying that the trials tentatively have been looking very good in New York and in France. I think France now is prescribing it, I read earlier. I don't know the truth of that. I read it in the mainstream media. It might be nonsense. I don't know. It was Giuliani that was saying they're using it in France. We should be using it in the United States. But one of the theories as to why this is not being discussed in the mainstream media at all, or practically at all, is because, guess what? Big Pharma, it doesn't have a patent on it. Anybody can make it, so there's no big profit to be made from it. It's been in circulation for 65 years as an anti-malarial drug, and therefore, I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Liz? Have you heard anything about this drug? It could be that it's not a suitable drug, But there have been trials, apparently, which have been successful. Very, very successful.
Yeah, I think that was another one they were training in Australia as well, wasn't it? So
I think the Aussies have used it quite well.
Yeah.
I remember reading that the Aussies have been using it, and it's really helped them.
Hydrochloroquine.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not an NHS worker. I just have NHS workers in my family, so I don't know. And an awful lot of my friends are in the NHS, so sort of our prayers are with them because they're right on the front line. But I don't know. I mean, I've done a little bit of research. I've seen that there's a lot of research seems to be going on in Australia and around there. But then Australia and New Zealand have an awful lot of lung problems. So there is a lot of research into respiratory in that area, in New Zealand and Australia. So it doesn't surprise me that that it keeps coming up that they've been trying this stuff because they've got a lot of lung problems down in Australia, and so they've got the researchers there. So I don't know. But there was a question. I'm sorry, I've forgotten your guest's name.
Go on, Stephen Place.
Hi,
Stephen. Yeah, sorry. I kind of went to the last lot of hustings. I mean, it was just an absolute. Everything that went on was an absolute shambles. And what happens if you don't get through vetting? Is it just is Freddie going to be coronated? Is he just going to be crowned?
Good question.
I think democratically and it be the other way as well. I think democratically, then yes, I think that's a procedure. I mean, it was open to any. It was open. Yeah, but the thing is, though, it's like what if the Labour Party could have been in the same situation, and and the Lib Dems now they're going through a leadership thing.
That doesn't make it any less laughable, Stephen.
Oh no, it is. It is. It's disappointing that there weren't 4, 5, 6 people come forward, but I suppose that's a reflection on where we are at the moment. That only 2 people have been prepared to put their head above the parapet and say, I want to bring this out the doldrums, and I want to get this party back up to where it should be.
What if Richard Brain was to come back into the fray? Now I think that the NEC has had a bit of a clear out, a semi-clear out at least. I understand that there's somebody who has allegedly got some dodgy business dealings kind of as an interim leader of the NEC now. That's another story for another day. But on the other hand, maybe it's beginning to improve. I don't know. But if Richard Brain was to come back on the basis that some of the characters that most wanted him out are no longer in that NEC, allegedly, is that something that you would say, you know what, that's a good thing because he was the membership's choice and we should get behind him and get this party on?
My answer to that is I honestly don't know, because at the end of the day, Richard's left the party, and whether I don't know right now if his application to be a member again would be accepted. I don't know beyond that whether he would be. I suppose he would have to wait for the next leadership competition to put his name forward again. I don't think there could be a coronation of him coming back into the party and becoming leader again. I've said on record, I'm happy to say it here now, I think Richard was probably the best leader we've never had. Televisually, he was quick-witted, he was good.
He's a bright guy.
I just think he was led down the wrong pathway. We begged him to work with the regional chairs, regional organisers, to take the party forward. We begged him to, set a cabinet up and run the party from the political aspects of the party from that way, and he didn't, and it all became a bit.
Was that not because the party was so? Was that not because the infrastructure of the party was evidently so against his candidacy and leadership?
No, because I think when he first got elected in the first 2 or 3 months of his 2 months of him being elected, he could have called on the regional chairs and regional organisers at any time, and we would have gone to a meeting with him. And I said to him, get us to a meeting. Have a meeting with us all and charge us with getting 6,000 candidates for the May elections. that was last year, obviously for this May, charge us with getting that task. Let's get something moving, set some KPIs, set some targets of achievement. Let's get moving as a political party. And it just never came about.
Okay, let's just.
Can I add something to that?
Liz,
I'm going to be very careful because I've had conversations with various people in confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if he found himself unable to do that because people with dodgy business dealings blocked the way.
No.
They didn't, no.
There was nothing to stop Richard contacting regional chairs, regional organisers, calling them to a meeting, saying, right, this is what I want you to do for me in the next 3 months. There is a training, I wrote, I'm blowing my own trumpet here, I wrote the training programme. There's a training programme for would-be councillor candidates. We could have run with that. We could have trained and developed them. We could have got them going. The machinations and the fighting that was going on within the NEC and Richard, nothing to do with us at all. The political party aspect, what you've got to bear in mind is that UKIP is a limited company that does politics. And it's the politics side of it. We could have set hairs running. We could have really done some good work.
You know,
I know. Everybody's got. There's lots of different sides to different things, isn't there? Because I was told that he was trying to do that he was desperately trying, and that he was prepared to go anywhere in the country.
Well, he did go around the country. He went to various meetings. When he came to Leeds to meet with myself and Gail, the regional organiser, I arranged whilst he was there. He went straight to Sheffield that night and had a meeting. We found out which branches were meeting that night. He went to Sheffield that night, met with them, stayed at one of the members' homes, then went to Hull the following day, spoke to the Hull members, and then he had to go back down south. So then I know for a fact he went to Wigan in Lee. He went all over the country to different branches, but that wasn't really, they were all on his side because he'd been voted in. So he didn't really need to do, my suggestion, with all due respect to him, it was that he didn't really need to do that. He needed to really concentrate on giving the party some vision and direction. That's what was lacking.
Yeah.
We've got just a couple of minutes left before I'm going to have to wrap up. And the main reason for that, I'm sorry to say, is because I need to go to the loo and take a pee. There you go. Anyway, but before I do, a few comments in wrapping up. Kazi Max says, quinine used to be sold over the counter, but was removed years and years ago. Carlos, trials for drugs take years. We are being used as an experiment. Kazi Max, it was good for things like... sever cramp too. Amanda Thompson, intravenous vitamin C was helping recovery, but docs stopped it. Why? Phantom Profit. It's hydrochloroquine and is a toxin, so people need to be careful with it. Maximum safe dose is 0.8 milligrams per litre. Look, this show is not endorsing any drug apart from having a damn good reefer, frankly, which probably we all need right now. But otherwise, I'm endorsing no drug or what have you. But I do think it is fascinating to have heard the comments from the President of the United States about this drug and the fact that the mainstream media, by and large, and the successful trials in places like New York and in France that I've read about, and yet the mainstream media stays silent about it. And I do think that there's a huge story there alone. Alan Elder Brown says, bring back Richard Brain. The only hope UKIP had. You, Stephen, were as guilty as most at his demise. I think you deserve a right of return to that, Stephen.
Well, I have evidence to the contrary. You know, as I say, I had meetings with Richard, several phone calls with him. I've got text messages to and from him about my support for him and everything else. And that's just, I'm nothing. I was not on the NEC. I wasn't a party spokesperson then. And I had nothing whatsoever to do with Richard Brain being his demise from the party. Nothing whatsoever.
You know, Alan, I would really, really love to have a chat with Richard Brain and with Gerald as well. So if you can arrange that or come on yourself, sir, that would be terrific. British Hive Mind. Yep, Amanda. High dosage vitamin C and D. It cures a lot of illness. Phantom Profit says hydrochloroquine, if you manage to get hold of any, prices are going through the roof, but for goodness sake, read up on the directions for use. Be very, very careful. Frankly, I think you're going to have to take some specialist advice on that, I would have thought. Carol Weston, I suspect this guy's being economical with the truth. Did he not say earlier he didn't know if Brain was still in the party and now has said he's left? Carol, Stephen?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if he's left or not. I'm presuming he's left. I don't know if he's still a member or not. I haven't a clue. I haven't got a clue. I don't even know if Gerard Batten's still a member of the party or not, or Alan Elder Brown or anybody. How would I know that?
I know Alan isn't at the moment. I tell you, I got to say, I feel personally let down from UKIP. I'm not. I am a proud floating voter. Yeah, I am proud of having no political affiliation as such. Keep them guessing, I say. Keep them on their toes. But having said that, I did join UKIP. I broke a rule and joined a political party because I saw it as an underdog party that had great hope under the leadership of Gerard Batten, and that could bring people together, that was bringing into British politics, giving a home to a swathe of the British electorate, in inverted commas, because these people hadn't been given a genuine political choice for decades. And it seemed to me that Gerard Batten and UKIP finally was giving a home to this and a broader church. And I thought that was fantastic. I know there's controversy involved and what have you with the Tommy Robinson thing.
I absolutely agree with you.
Different people have different views on it.
The Birmingham National Conference in 2018. I've been to every single conference since I joined, apart from Newport last year. And the only reason I didn't go to that was because I was previous engagements. The Birmingham conference in 2018, which was Gerard Batten's first conference, I thought that was the best conference the party's ever had. Even in the halcyon days of Nigel Farage, it was the best conference we ever had.
The bottom line, sir, is we need a joined up UKIP somehow. We need people involved in politics and not disenfranchised from politics. And when people say your vote doesn't count, UKIP over the last few years has personified that statement.
Well, yeah, the membership are the beating heart of the party, and the membership throughout the history of since I joined UKIP, the membership have always been treated really badly by a succession of different leaders, and there are many things. Again, I can't say at the moment, but I'm happy to come back on. I'm more than happy and give you my version of events. And
haven't totally frightened you off. Liz, go on. You were going to say something. I heard a ruffling from Liz's telephone.
Just very, very quickly, 2 points. It's absolutely correct. Stephen is absolutely correct that I know people that went off to the Brexit Party very, very disillusioned. And secondly, don't forget, I think the majority of voters... I think UKIP is always seen as a conservative for most people I know, but I'm in South Wales. It's Labour voters. So they need to remember the working class, the Labour voters, and if they can do that, we are desperately, desperately in need of a party because, we have nobody that represents us.
Damn right.
So I wish you all the best. I do. I will say good night and God bless now. I wish you all the best, and I really hope you can do something because I too am a floated voter and I've got no home. Ta-da now.
Thank you, Liz. God bless
you, Liz.
Thank you, Stephen Place. Thank you, sir, for coming on. No, you got a bit of a grilling, but you know what? At the moment, anybody to do with UKIP deserves it. No,
absolutely. I'm quite happy to come back and be grilled anytime. No problem at all.
Good man. And equally, I note that Alan Elder Brown in the comments says he's going to have a word with Richard Brain, which is very kind of you, Alan. Thank you. And I see also that you're recuperating in hospital, and I know that you've had some difficulties, and wish you well, sir. And I know a lot of people here do as well. Aye. It would be great to have balanced politics and proper debate, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And then we'd be way, way better immunized against the kind of problems that we're seeing in the modern world, like China. We'd be immunized from all the crap from the EU and all that. If only we had politics that was less cynical and selfish and more, democratically minded. Right, okay, that's it for Daily Chaos today on Monday. Tomorrow I've got Mr. J, Mystery Man from Canada, who at the moment is worried about his 20 employees because his business is basically right down the pan. And so we're just going to get a Canadian perspective on what's going on with this whole coronavirus whatnot. I think he's got a few things to say to Mr. Trudeau as well. So that's 5 p.m. GMT tomorrow, 6 o'clock Central European Time, 1 o'clock in DC. Mr. President, if you want to come on and tell us what you're doing to drain the swamp. Are we going to have an internet blackout starting on Wednesday, or is that just an April Fool's type thing that is perpetuating online? I'll tell you, it really makes you wonder. Who knows? Maybe those 100,000 sealed indictments are going to be served while people can't phone each other up saying, we're getting arrested here. I don't know. Anyway, God bless you. See you tomorrow. Here's to us and bugger the bug. Ciao.